Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the METUS Tech Show. On today's episode, we'll be talking with METUS CEO Mark Kuntz about grid resilience. But first, the METUS Minute. Today's METUS Minute is about the inverter cooling circuit in city multi-equipment. There are two main components that make up the inverter cooling circuit, the heat sink thermistor, or THHS, and LEV9. The heat sink thermistor is permanently installed on the inverter board and determines the temperature of the inverter during compressor operation. As the inverter board increases in temperature, LEV9 will begin to open, sending refrigerant through a small refrigerant loop mounted on the back side of the control box. This loop keeps the inverter board from overheating during operation. If the heat sink thermistor reaches a temperature between 200 and 212 degrees, depending on the model, an error code, typically 4230, will show on the outdoor unit control board and the system will be locked out. Conversely, in cooling mode, if the heat sink thermistors measure a temperature below outdoor ambient temperature, TH7, repeatedly, or in heating mode, the heat sink thermistor reads a temperature below the suction pressure saturation temperature, TE, repeatedly, the outdoor unit will show an error code of 3511 and the system will be locked out. In order to diagnose the thermistor, use either maintenance tool or SW4 on the outdoor unit to determine the temperature reading with the system off. If the temperature is abnormal, the inverter board will need to be replaced. If the temperature reading is normal, check resistance on LEV9. Resistance reading should be 46 ohms plus or minus 3%. Use the service manual to determine the proper common or commons for each coil. Thank you for listening to today's METUS Minute. Now let's start the show.
The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
All right, so Mark, I have a pellet stove at home, a pellet grill. I also have a pellet stove, but I have a pellet grill that I do a lot of smoking on. It is a Traeger, and it's got the app, and it's got all of that. Done brisket, I've done ribs on it. It's phenomenal. I heard you're starting to do some grilling. You have a Rectech?
That's right. Yeah, as I think we've spoken about before, I've electrified my property. And so as part of that process, I bought just one of these cheap electric grills.
Okay.
And, it was part of my philosophy, but it's really an unsatisfactory way to cook a good piece of meat.
Yeah.
So I've been researching the different pellet smokers and had a lot of recommendations for Rectech. It's a Georgia company, great website, recipes, interactivity. But I'm thinking, I'm going all electric here. How do I justify this? And I thought, you know what? It's not electric. It does light on fire, but it's a renewable resource.
Yeah, renewables.
So
Yeah.
I think for my purposes, that's close enough.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm solar for my electricity, and I'm wood based for my grilling.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And among the things that I think is unique about the Rectech is you can actually crank this thing up to 800 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And you might ask, why do I need that?
Pizza?
You got it. Exactly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You cook a pizza in like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
And a
it
good
is.
pizza at that, yeah.
Exactly right. So that's actually what we've been most successful with. I mean, you can make fabulous, as you say, brisket and pork butt and all the normal stuff.
Right.
But I like to make a fermented pizza dough. So it cold ferments overnight. We've got the large, I think, is a 16-inch pan. So I do put it on a pan because you can't put the pizza straight on the grill. But it's the greatest fun. You have people over, you have the grandkids there, and everybody gets to dress the pizza while the Rectech's heating up, and it hits 800, and you put that thing on there, and you don't go away.
Yeah.
No.
You're timing it because you got 30 seconds plus or minus. It's either going to be raw or black.
Really?
So in my case, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, you got it timed. Nice.
I rotate it once in the middle at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Pull that thing out, and it's crisp. It's got the nice char on top, and you slice it and you hand it out, and it's a super hit. We make 4 of those at a sitting.
So would you say is it thin pizza?
Oh, gotta be thin.
Yeah, gotta be thin.
See, I like that. Yeah.
So
you like the crack.
So I actually do pizza on my regular gas grill. Like I will actually take the dough and put it right on the grate.
Wow.
And I'll cook it there for like literally. I close the lid, and maybe it gets up to 500 degrees. I don't know, but I close the lid. I'll have it a minute. I flip it over another minute, and I take it off. Then I put all my toppings on.
Oh, you pre-cook it.
Yeah, and then I throw it in there. But your things. This is a Rectech.
Yeah.
So it's a grill, but no charcoal. You got wood pellets.
Wood pellets.
It's a smoker.
Yeah.
It's an oven.
That's right.
Oh.
And it's a high temperature pizza oven.
Pizza oven.
Yeah, and pizza oven.
My wife's gonna kill me, but I'm getting one.
It goes up. Mine goes up to about 500 degrees, and you can throw burgers on there and cook burgers on the pellet grill. I don't do it that often, but 800 degrees, that's impressive.
Yeah, it is. Impressive.
And you're going to cook a fantastic pizza at that
Oh,
point.
and it's kind of that flavor that like that it's going to have like that the wood oven like that.
Right.
Like
it's like a real pizza oven.
A pizza oven. But
I have made this sales pitch a few times before, and the other current owners of the Rectech in our company are Andy Kelso and Shane Lawrence. Bryn's got his checkbook ready.
They're all buying in.
That should be a requirement. I think that you must own
I'm
one.
going to start looking into a Rectech, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'll let you know as soon as I get one.
That's all
very good.
my wife needs to see is another grill on my porch.
Yeah, I might get
Well, that's the thing is, like I've only ever cooked one in an oven or made a pizza in the oven, and you get it up to like 450, but you do have to sometimes par bake the dough, and then you put your toppings on, but it's not, doesn't taste like a true pizza. There's always, you can tell it's homemade, so it's kind of cool to get that high temp.
Mark, so pizza aside, what's your next favorite thing to cook on it?
I do the pulled pork. That's a winner.
Yeah.
Every time I do a 10-hour smoke.
Oh yeah, and it just falls apart. Man. We're at the national sales meeting in St. Louis, and this like every other event we have, food comes out. In fact, you were ragging on me because I had pizza and dinner's in an hour. Every hour and a half they bring out food, but here we are. We're talking about food. I'm full. I probably ate more today than I did 2 days last week combined, but I'm still hungry now.
Dinner's coming.
We got dinner coming. We'll be all right.
Yeah,
we'll live. Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, everybody. We got Paul Shaves on the show.
Hey, everyone.
We got Bryn Raptor.
Hello.
Myself, Steve Pimentel, and a special guest, CEO of METUS, Mark Kuntz.
It's great to be here, guys.
Yeah, so we had you on probably 3 years ago, one of the first dozen episodes.
I think it was like the third or fourth episode, actually.
Yeah, and we talked about the IRA and the rebates, and it was a lot to unpack in that episode. And I asked Mark to come back on this, and I really wanted to talk about HVAC, and I wanted to talk about his home, because a few years ago you did a presentation, probably 2 years ago maybe, at the DSG conference. Yeah. You had a presentation up, and you showed us some of the gadgets in your home to save energy, and we'd like to talk about that. And I also want to point out something first. If you recognize Mark's voice, it's probably because you've heard it on the refrigerant flow software or program that can be downloaded on mylinkdrive.com. And Mark, how many years ago did you narrate that refrigerant flow diagram?
That's got to be at least 10.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because that was a K-Gen, I think, or an L-Gen
that came
system.
That came out. I was only here like a year or two when that came out, so you're probably right. I've been here 13 years, so it's probably 10 or 11 years.
There are people who are taking one of our classes who will text me and say, I'm hearing your voice right now.
So I have a question for you, and don't take this the wrong way because I like my job. But when you were reading that and you were narrating that, did you actually understand what you were saying, or were you just reading?
That was my first week in Swanee.
Oh, wow.
The marketing department said, hey, we costed this thing out. It's too much. It's beyond our budget. Here, can you do it? I had no idea what I was talking about.
It was done very well.
It was.
And when it's for most, I can probably speak for most of the instructors. When we first start teaching City Multi, when we get to refrigerant flow, we bring that program up because it does a great job of explaining the gas liquid separator and all the other components. And when I was kind of green and just starting off teaching, I would use the narration. I'd just click on the narration and let you talk your way through it. And then after a while, Paul was like, no, you shouldn't be using the narration. You should be teaching that on your own. And I had to force myself to not use the narration and actually go through. And we still use it till this day. Yeah. Even though we're at the NGen equipment, it's still the same concept. It's
especially
still
in the BC controller, nothing's changed in there.
So it's a great program. And if you don't have it, for our listeners, it's on my link drive under software, and it's called Refrigerant Flow Diagram.
Yeah, and it's a very good thing to have, just to familiarize yourself with the refrigerant, because refrigerant flow is refrigerant flow. We said this last week, and it just simplifies it a little bit for you.
Right.
And another thing, Mark is not only our CEO, he has HVAC background, HVAC experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, you crawl through the trenches, literally, through crawl spaces with boxes of Flex.
Oh, yeah.
And that's impressive. I'm proud to say my CEO is an HVAC installer.
And I don't think that's very common. I'm willing to bet you that most CEOs of HVAC companies probably don't have an HVAC background. They probably have a business background or something. So you got both, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that was at Atlas Furnace Company, Sunnyvale, California, 19, smallest guy on the installation team. So I got to drag the Flex through the attics or under the house. And,
it's not easy.
If only there'd been ductless then.
Yeah, that's it.
And in California, the attics must have been much hotter than
crawl
in
spaces.
Boston.
Probably got rattlesnakes and tarantulas and who knows what else out there.
As a fellow undersized person, the crawl spaces and attics was.
This is why I got to the size where I am. I wanted to avoid all those things.
That was smart.
Yeah.
We used to get the service calls that the guys would go to, and they'd write a note, "Good job for Bryn," and it's because it's either between some sort of joist or you got to get up into a crawl space for it. And I'm like, oh, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Mark, let's get down to the reason why we asked you to come on here. Actually, you made us put you on here, but that's okay.
Thanks for hosting.
No, I'm just kidding. But your home, that presentation Steve's talked about, you gave at the DSG conference. Your home is, I'm going to say, somewhat. It's not unique. But it's something we don't hear a lot. So you put your money where your mouth is. You're taking this is not just comfort, but you're taking this. I want to make the grid healthy. I want to make my carbon footprint really small. So tell us some of the things that you've put in your home, and then we can get into specifics.
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the METUS Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the METUS Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the METUS Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the METUS Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the METUS Training Network today. Now, back to the METUS Tech Show.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you two sections here. The home that you're talking about for the DSG was a home we built from ground up. It was intended to be a high-performance home. I hired a builder who specialized in that. I wanted to feature Mitsubishi products throughout. And so we purpose-built what we hoped would be a net zero building. So you've got an incredibly good envelope. We had a fresh air through an ERV, so we got good ventilation. Triple pane windows, which was probably a little overkill for the South, but if you're all in, you're all in.
Right.
But of course, we capped that all off with Mitsubishi equipment. There's 4 zones in the home, 3 in a bedroom and 3 bedrooms and 1 living space. And then we topped it all off with Mitsubishi electric solar panels. And given the fact that I as an employee, had a pretty good rate on those solar panels. The way I sized them is I measured how big my roof was.
That's it. That's what they do now.
I covered the roof, and it turns out to be not net zero. It's net positive, and I'll include in that the fact that you guys probably know I drive an electric car, so both the car and the home have used less energy over time than the house itself creates via the solar panels. It is unique from this perspective. It won the Department of Energy Zero Energy Home of the Year for 2019.
Wow.
Oh, well.
So as you know, a lot of my job involves going to Washington, D.C., interacting with the Department of Energy for things like the IRA program and the tax credits. And it's always a nice name drop to thank them for my Department of Energy award as we get the meeting underway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you mentioned your trip, a couple of trips to the White House, at least one time, you actually took pictures of the guard check. And what's in the guard check?
There's actually 3 levels of security when you're trying to get in the White House, and at each level there's a kiosk with a Mitsubishi mini split.
Nice. That's
awesome.
beautiful.
Made me feel right at home.
Yeah.
Now, you said you have 4 zones in your home. Is it 4 one-to-one systems, or is it a multi-zone?
It's an MXZ3 zone for the bedrooms, and then we were actually testing at the time I was building it the Slim Plus, which is a European product that has 1 zone for heating and air conditioning and 1 zone for hot water. Mm-hmm. It was my dream to actually have the hot water zone, but we didn't have the tank at that point. So I put the Slim Plus in for the comfort conditioning, piped it to my utility room for hot water in the future. But I don't know that future is ever going to come. We've had a hard time finding a hot water tank manufacturer who will sell us a tank with the heat exchanger wrap, which is really what this thing needs. So at the moment, it's just working off a conventional water heater, but it serves the purpose.
Right.
And you've got some other things in your house besides, so you've got the Mitsubishi equipment, you've got the solar panels. There's other things you have as well, right?
Well, it's net zero the way that's calculated, and that's basically on an annual basis. You calculate, or your meter actually runs forwards and backwards, at least in Georgia, so you can see how much you've taken off the grid and how much you've put on. But it's over a 1-year period. If it's net, you qualify. That's certainly not real time. Real time net zero would mean you're producing as much energy as you need at any particular moment.
Right.
Okay.
That's a whole lot harder to achieve, and that requires energy storage. So my second phase with the home was to add energy storage, which allows me to store the excess on a peak day and then use that overnight and in the shoulders. And that has given me the ability to go real-time net zero 2 seasons out of the year.
Yeah.
It's really tough to do through the winter. But
That's, I think, the graphic, if I remember, was the graphic of showing when you were at those peak times and using the storage and how you were kind of able to level things out to keep that net zero status, which is just awesome. It was so cool to see. I remember watching it and being kind of inspired to try something like that.
Well, then there's a solution I believe is on the horizon that will allow it to be net zero all the time, which is if I were able to draw the energy out of my electric car, I could span 3 days.
Yeah.
And in Georgia, we don't have the times where you don't have any solar for 3 days are pretty limited. I believe the technology exists. I believe the car manufacturers just don't want to free up that capacity because they don't know what it's going to do with the battery if they let you use it for energy storage. But I think that day will come. And at this point, I would have enough capacity to be net zero 100% of the time.
That's amazing. Just awesome.
Yeah. Now, you have another home, you said, on your property. Which home has the air-to-water system? Do you have an air-to-water system?
Well, that's the so-called Slim Plus.
Oh, okay.
I have an air-to-water system, but I have no tank to put the water in.
Okay. Yeah.
It's ready to go.
It's an air to potential water.
Right. Now, that was the home of the year 2019. And there was another home on the property that when we first bought it, we had rented it out. It was built in the 80s, so it's a 40-year-old home. But after living in the zero energy home for a while, we decided let's do a rehab on the original home. And we undertook that in several phases. It was a conventional heat pump. They had a 4-ton heat pump serving the home, and it had a 100-amp backup resistance heater serving the air handler. It's not a huge home. It's 1,800 square feet, but they designed it for a worst-case scenario. Right. And one of the first things I did is I put a span panel in the home. And if you're not familiar with span, it's a smart circuit breaker panel. So you take out your existing dumb circuit breaker panel, you put this thing in, and it gives you remote control of every circuit in your house. It has utility-grade metering on every circuit in your house. And if you have energy storage, you can prioritize which circuits are must-have, which are nice to have, and which are don't need. And in the case of a grid outage, it will effectively be an energy management system for your home. It will focus you on just those must-have circuits unless you tell it, give me must-have and nice-to-have. And it will count down. It will tell you exactly how much time you have on your battery. It's a very elegant system, very well designed. It's a spin-off from Tesla. The inventor of the Tesla Powerwall went out and did his own thing, called it Span, and I read about it. I wanted one. Yeah. And one of the first things I measured was how much my conventional heat pump was using with its 100-amp backup. And obviously, it's pretty easy to do the math. When the backup was on full bore, that's 24,000 watts.
Wow.
Yeah. Not including the compressor if it was still running. You know, very cold temperatures, it would cut out anyway. But this thing peaked out at 24,000 watts. Yeah. So, archaic system, perfect subject for a remodel.
Oh, it's beautiful. It sounds... and the span, all those settings you mentioned on the span panel, that's just done through an app on your phone?
That's right.
So I got a question for you. I mean, it's obvious. I think anybody can see the benefits to you as a ratepayer to utility. And besides the comfort alone, it's already a win for you. But so we titled this podcast Grid Resilience. So how does your home or both houses on the property, what's the win for the utility? What's the win for everybody else beside you? Because your wins, I think, are obvious.
Yeah, let me walk you through that. Georgia, even though it's a southern state, is now a winter peaking utility. That means they have to design all of their infrastructure and all of their generation for the coldest day of winter. That's what they call the critical load.
Yep.
And that's largely because housing is being built at a rapid pace in Georgia, and a lot of conventional heat pumps with resistance backup heat are being installed.
That's amazing. I would think as hot as it gets down there that the peak time would be in the middle of the summer, but that's amazing.
It has been traditionally, but it has now shifted. So Georgia Power has to provide me 24,000 watts of energy just to heat my home on the coldest day of winter, and they have to size their whole system for that. Regardless of how many hours it is, they have to have enough wires and substations in place to serve that. So the first thing I did to help them, it was entirely out of the kindness of my heart, is I ripped out that Amana conventional heat pump, and I put in a PUZ hyperheat and a PVA air handler. No backup. I didn't need it. People actually asked me, why are you putting a hyperheat in Georgia? And I said, because I want the best.
Yeah.
I put that system in. We continued. We did a remodel on the home, changed out the windows and put some more insulation in the attic, but nothing dramatic, and moved into it. And we've enjoyed living in the house, have the kids over, have the grandkids over. 2 Christmases ago, I had the whole extended family there, and we hit 5 degrees in Monroe, Georgia. And I hadn't actually anticipated that in my design calculations. I actually downsized from a 4-ton heat pump to a 3.5-ton PUZ, but we were completely comfortable. And I thought, you know what, I need to capture this moment. So I stuck a meat thermometer in one of my air outlets. It was reading 116 degrees. Wow. I took my iPad with the weather app on it and held it up next to the meat thermometer. It was reading 5 degrees. And then I took my SPAN app and looked at the heat pump circuit. It was reading 6,600 watts. So if my system were not a Mitsubishi highly efficient heat pump, I would have been drawing 24,000 watts. That is a huge win for the utility right there.
Oh.
Further, the SPAN panel, if I had activated it in such a way and the utility gave them a signal, it could have turned off that circuit. Of course, that would be the last thing I would want it to do on a 5-degree day.
Right.
But I was thinking through, we've got variable capacity. What if the SPAN panel could just give me a signal, and it maybe the utility only wants 1,000 watts. It could ramp down the inverter to 1,000 watts from 6,600 to 5,600. I'd still be getting plenty of capacity, but the utility would be able to take me now it's not down from 24,000 to 6,600 to say 5,000.
Yeah.
And they would have some control. I could grant them control to maybe take it down to 3 if I wanted. That's grid resilience. If they had that at a wide scale, you'd basically have the equivalent of a reverse peaking plant. You could turn things down when you needed that extra bit of critical energy on a super cold day. I found the CEO of SPAN and called him up, and I talked this idea over with him.
Yeah.
He thought it was fantastic. We got some teams together, started testing. Our SDC built a firmware update, which created an API that the SPAN panel could communicate with over Wi-Fi. Tested it out. SPAN started running around the country. Their trade show booth is a tiny house with their panel inside, our unit hanging on the wall, and demoing this concept.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the new A2L products that are coming to us right now have that API built into them. So all of our products with built-in Wi-Fi are SPAN-enabled right now. SPAN panel can reach out, modulate, and continue to, provide perfect comfort for the homeowner, basic energy management for the home, and a tool for the utilities should, again, over time, business models will develop that will allow you to take advantage of that, but control their peak load on their worst days. And the same thing works in reverse in summer. I mean, we could do all of the above in a summer peaking utility and just dial down the cooling.
And it's doing it wirelessly. It's doing that demand wirelessly, which is impressive because normally we have to use, it's hardwired. We use our CNDM connector, which is an input that will drop that unit down for 2 reasons. It could be for load shed or it could be for sound ordinance.
Yeah,
right? And so
noise
we
demand.
can do it in 25% increments. So that's interesting how they're doing that.
You know what's interesting too is the utility programs that do this kind of demand reduction will typically just put a relay on your outdoor unit, and they send out a radio signal and it just cuts it off for 15 minutes or an hour or rotating. Historically, people sign up for those programs, and the first time it happens,
They cut it out.
they cancel the program the next day. In this case, if I'd given them 1,000 watts or 2,000 watts or 3,000 watts, I'd probably never even know it happened.
Right.
I'm going to be perfectly happy, and the utility gets to keep me out there as a resource for them. And in the right model, I think the utilities are going to be willing to pay for that service.
Yeah, because if 90%, heck, if 50% of the homes in your town had that, it would almost
be huge.
Yeah, it would be like, we wouldn't even need a power plant.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm actually taking this idea to Southern Company this month. I've got an appointment with their president of development. The idea's been planted there. I'm going to go and have a serious conversation. If Southern Company, who sells across the South, was able to identify their worst offenders, like my house, which I know they can, they just look at how big the bill is, and wanted to work with us to replace those worst case offenders with highly efficient all-climate heat pumps, we could solve some significant societal issues, give the grid resilience, give comfort, and economy to our users and have a triple win.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's one of the cool things that, because, we hear it all the time that the increase in use of heat pumps is going to stress the grid. But in reality, depending on the application, if it's done properly, it could actually help save the grid, So
it's exactly right.
Yeah.
The idea that just adding heat pumps is a good thing is wrong. if they have to go on resistance heat when it drops below 20 degrees, the idea that Mitsubishi heat pumps can provide significant value is right. And do not stress the grid, actually help the grid in exactly the ways we've laid out here.
And you're talking Georgia, but we've got Royal River up in Maine, and they just do heat pump and just do Mitsubishi. And we had Scott Libby on a couple of years ago, and I think we asked him of the systems that he's putting in, how many of them are the sole source of heat. And he said it was like 40% in Maine.
Yeah, right.
That's incredible.
But we got stories like that all over the country. You mentioned one in Michigan.
Right.
Ontonagon.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ontonagon.
Yeah, Ontonagon. Tell us about that real quick. I think it's worth mentioning. Are you allowed to talk about it?
I am. I was given the opportunity to present to the Secretary of Energy in the last administration, Jennifer Granholm, and she was being lobbied by the other CEOs in our industry to drop the standard in the IRA from Energy Star 6.1 to DOE minimum. They claimed that the high efficiency heat pumps were too expensive. Nobody would buy them, and they still wouldn't work in super cold climates. So just drop the standard and we can sell all the heat pumps you want. And I had the opportunity to rebut that. It was 13 against 1. But I took the moment to talk about this low-income development in Ontonagon, Michigan, right on the Canadian border, among the coldest climates in the country, replaced resistance baseboards with hyperheat one-to-ones, and testimonials from the residents, from the property manager, and from the utility were that this was a phenomenal win for them on all levels. Temperatures had hit -20 that winter, and they still didn't have incidents of the resistance backup coming on. Talked about the actual utility savings, which exceeded $50,000 a year. I said, so, Madam Secretary, we agree that there should be one standard across the whole country, and it should be Energy Star 6.1. She said, well, two things. I've been to Ontonagon. I had actually been mispronouncing it. I was saying Ontonagon. So she said two things. First of all, it's pronounced Ontonagon. And if it can work there, it can work anywhere. Excuse me, gentlemen, I have another meeting I need to go to. And she split.
Nice. See you later. Mic drop.
Yep. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I love that story.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general it's kind of cool because, the fact that you took the lengths and actually went through to have verifiable data of the benefit of all the things that are out there, whether it's a span panel and, utilizing solar energy and using our product for the savings. But, anybody can say these things, but to actually go out, test it, and show verifiable data that it works is awesome because, it's always out there. The conversation's there. It's cool to actually see real-time actual values and data to show the actual benefits. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I don't think I could have convinced the CEO of Span to put a whole development project together if I hadn't had that picture.
Yeah.
He loved the fact that it was my meat thermometer.
Yeah. That's good.
But it was proof. I mean, he knew his own equipment was accurate, so he could do the math.
Right.
And motivated him to let's make this real and let's sell this as a benefit to create grid resilience.
Cool.
So is there anything else that you could add to your house that is even going to make it better? Like, what's the next step, or is there a next step?
There is. We'll talk about that on my next podcast.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that.
That sounds fantastic.
Next you're going to hear he's talking to car manufacturers about the
that's
battery storage.
That's my next question is I think I know the answer, but what kind of car are you driving?
I have a Tesla, which is, of course, all electric, and I have a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. So I got 20 kilowatt hours of storage in the Mitsubishi, and I got 75 kilowatt hours of storage in the Tesla, 100 kilowatt hours,
Right there.
I'd be fine for weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is just great. Walking the walk, talking the talk. That's it.
Yeah, because you talk to somebody in the Northeast and you tell them, listen, I'm ripping out your boiler and I'm putting in a heat pump, and that's your sole source of heat. We're going to tell you you're crazy.
Yeah.
But it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening in Maine, and then Scott Libby, he's proof of it. Bangor, minus 40 degrees. They hit minus 40 a couple of years ago, and I talked to a few people, distributors, and Andre from Wind Supply, up in Bangor.
Yeah.
They had very minimal service calls for anything where customers were suffering with no heat or anything like that. It was just incredible.
Yeah, a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it got like 12 below in Massachusetts. And we had Krita Zolas. She's Boston Douglas. She's the owner of Boston Douglas. And it was a weekend, I think it was 4 days where it was 12 below zero. She didn't get one no heat call because all she does is Mitsubishi Heat pumps, and that's it. Not one single no heat call. So.
Yeah.
And at 12 below, I mean, it gets to 12 below, but it lasts a couple of days, and then it's not like it's going to be there all month. So, but that was great.
Yeah, Cree had a great story. So she was on our show for and talking about, she was a master electrician, and she would be on these jobs wiring these heat pump systems. She was like, I can do this. I can install mini splits. And she opened up a business, Boston Douglas, and very successful. It's amazing.
So forgive me if you aren't positive, but it sounds like in order to take advantage of the API and our new A2L equipment, as long as you have a span panel connected and operating, that's all you would need in order to start taking advantage of the technology or the collaboration between the two?
Yeah, Span actually put on their website or on their installer site the programming steps.
Sure.
There's a programming sequence they do on their side, and it's good to go.
Wow.
As long as somebody's connected to our Comfort app on the HVAC side, Span panel is ready to go.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Just another thing, right? Another thing for sales folks and contractors to learn about, because it's probably not going anywhere. We'll see more of that stuff. So.
Well, there's at least 3 of our major distributors who have captured the essence of this story and are now Span distributors.
Yeah, right.
So Gensco in the Northwest, Holman's in the Northeast, and Pierce Phelps in the Mid-Atlantic are all Span distributors.
Wow, that's awesome.
And again, we're going to keep building momentum with this and adding functionality.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next for this. And I'm looking forward to the next time you're on because I want to find out who else you're going to talk to. The utilities are going to be paying you.
They better be.
Yeah. You don't know us anything here. Yeah.
All right. On another note, Mark, are you still brewing mead? Are you still into that hobby?
Well, I'm sorry to say that's my skill set has not advanced in that area. My bees died.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's a lot harder to raise bees in the South than it is in Chicago for some reason.
Wow.
I would have thought the winter would have been the tough deal, but it is hard to keep a hive alive in Georgia.
It was an interesting discussion. I learned a lot. So for our listeners, if you listen back on Mark's first episode with us, and he talks about brewing mead with basically fermented honey.
Yep. Yeah, so I was going to say, if you have bees, it must be a honey.
Yeah, you would never. I guess if cost was no object, you could do it. But I would never buy enough honey to make mead out of it. You make mead because you got too much honey.
Yeah, right. That's funny. I've never had mead. I've heard of it, but I have to try it one of these days.
You can bring out your inner Viking.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Frank, anything else? We'll give you the final word?
Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. I always love geeking out, and you guys are the best. You've got all the good questions. So, all right.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. And
you got to look into this RecTech.
No, I got to get a RecTech. I really do. And Mark, you should know the pellets. Are they underneath? Like, is there a grate on top of the pellets, or is it an indirect heat? How does it?
You've got a hopper.
Yeah.
There's an auger that feeds them into a burner, so you've got a a concentrated point inside the enclosure, and then there's a heat shield that distributes that throughout the
It's like
the
a pellet
space.
boiler function.
Yeah,
But
It's pretty
grill
good at
food.
keeping temperature like within a couple of
Yeah.
degrees. It's amazing.
yeah.
I was impressed. And you set it for 225 degrees to smoke something, and it stays right within,
yeah.
5% of that at least.
I want to get one just to make the pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
You better get a Rectech then.
yeah, because I don't want to get one of those brick ovens.
Yeah, and they have
Sounds
the stainless steel pizza ovens now that you can get them up to pretty high in temperature, but
This
why
sounds
not
better.
just get the whole?
Because this, not just for
Whole
pizza,
package.
I could smoke some
Yeah.
things. Like I want to try it. Somebody suggested we try smoking garlic
Yeah, I saw
because
that.
we were talking about roasting garlic for and putting some olive oil and wrapping it up and using it for garlic bread as a spread. And somebody said, "You guys try smoking garlic."
Yeah.
So I'm dying to try that.
Yeah, there's so many things,
good.
and we have a barbecue champion on our one of our instructors, Scott Tallman out of Swanee. So he's been in barbecue championships and he's amazing with brisket, and he specializes in chicken thighs. Now, if you can smoke chicken thighs and it doesn't turn to rubber, you're doing something fantastic.
In fact, if Scott was on the podcast, he probably already knows about the Rectech. We'll tell you exactly how it works, what's going on with it. So,
He'd be comparing it to the egg and the Traeger and everything else.
yeah. Nothing like.
All right.
All right,
Thanks again, Mark.
we'll see you on the next
Take
one.
care, everyone.
Very good.